Hey, and welcome. This is Jack, and this is 3 ways to attract a commitment-oriented guy. So welcome if you're joining us live. Welcome if you're here after the event. I'm going to get right into this. There will be an opportunity for some questions and answers. If you leave a comment live and or after the event, I will get to them and give you an answer. If you are here live, let us know where you are tuning in from, where in the world you are. And if you do have a question, get it in because I'll get to them in order. So let's get to this. 3 ways to attract a commitment-oriented guy. So if you've been in any of these situations, this is going to be useful for you. If you've been in the situation where you seem to attract low commitment guys, casual guys, this will be of use to you. If you've been in a situation where you find it hard to discern, is this guy into me? Is he really interested? Why is he kind of dropping off? This video will be useful to you. And or if you are in a situation where you're stepping back into dating, right? Perhaps you've been in a relationship for a long time and that's ended and you've had a period of reflection and healing and you're getting ready or you're thinking about dipping your toe back into dating. This will help you optimize your time in the dating arena. So if you're just joining us, I'm Jack Butler. I'm live here, or if you're after the event watching this, thanks for tuning in. This is 3 ways to attract a commitment-oriented guy. So I'm going to basically give you 3 different kind of lenses or steps, and you're going to need to get a yes in each of these steps. And then I'm going to give you a quick bonus at the end as well. So make sure that you stay for that. As I've said, if you've got a question, hit me up in the comments. I will get to all your questions. And also just want to say right off the top, I am in the process of thinking about putting together a new program offer for you. And if that's of interest, make sure that you are on my mailing list because it will exclusively go out to people on my mailing list. So I'm going to just put a quick link here in the chat. Let me know if you can see this. It's the quickest way to get on my list is just to download my free guide. This is the He's Your Guy checklist guide. This will be a great companion to what I'm talking about to you here today. Let me also know if at any point I've got a fun light situation coming here. I'm so happy it's so sunny in October. But if at any point that doesn't quite look good on your end, you can also just let me know in the comments. All right, so let's get into this. So the first thing is perhaps the simplest of the 3 steps. So the first thing is to just notice, is this a guy typically that orients towards commitment, right? Meaning, is he a commitment type? And the quickest way, I think, to look at that is just to look at his past dating and relating behavior. Has he been in a long-term relationship? Has he been in more than one long-term relationship? Is that generally his pattern that he orients towards long-term relationship, right? So maybe he had a long-term girlfriend, partner, marriage, something like that. Because if you listen to this right now, let's say you're a woman who's over 35 or over 40, and you typically date roughly in your age bracket or older, and you come across a guy that has never been in a committed relationship, that may be, it's not a complete red flag, but that may just be something that points to the fact that that's not really where he's putting his attention in his life, right? That he's generally not orienting towards being in a more settled, committed style of relationship. Now, quick caveat, he could say, look, I've wanted this my whole life and I've just never met the right person, right? That's possible, but that would be a small percentage of the men that you're likely to meet. So typically you can look and say, hey, is this someone who has typically tried to get into longer term style of relationships? So that's almost like, who's the guy in a more general sense? That's step 1. Step 2 is a little bit more tricky to discern. And it's also something that's good to discern on your side of the fence as well. Step 2 is about the season of life that he is in. Is he in a season of life where it makes sense for him to orient towards commitment? Typically, men are going to orient towards commitment when they're feeling a sense of purpose and stability in their own lives, right? So, meaning they're kind of settled in what they're up to in their work, career, or purpose in the world. They're feeling somewhat settled, that they know how to put a roof over their head, that they know how to drive income, that their career is kind of going well or all right, or it's coasting, but they've maybe got to some kind of achievement or milestone. And they're more likely to be in a season if they aren't immediately in or coming out of another relationship, right? So there's been some kind of period of time to go fallow, to regroup, to heal, to move on from what has been. Now, where this gets tricky is that if we're talking about a guy who is generally a commitment-oriented guy, he might see himself as that. I'm a commitment-oriented guy, but he may not have the clearest read on the season he's in. So for instance, and you might have this in your own life, the rebound concept is a real thing, right? People who are out of one relationship think they're ready to go into the next one, but they're actually not. And they're using that relationship as a way of displacing difficult feelings and process they might need to go through about what has been. So you need to be a good discerner of noticing, what kind of season is this guy in? Now, his words can illuminate that. But if he says, yeah, I was with my girlfriend for 9 years and we broke up last month, he's not in a season where he's ready for commitment, right? If he says, hey, I was married for 5 years and we separated 2 years ago and everything got sorted 18 months ago and I've not really dated since then, and now I feel like I'm ready to get back in a relationship, he may be starting to get ready. And it may be that if he hasn't done any dating, that's also something that you might just pay attention to. Like, okay, yeah, so he's kind of fresh off the boat here, back into the dating pool. That might shift how oriented towards relationship he is, right? None of these are hard and fast. Your intuition is going to be way better than anything that I or anyone else can say to you. But I'm kind of giving you some scaffolds to help you dial in and sharpen your own intuition. As always, with anything on this channel, take it, try it on, see if it works for you. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, don't get hung up on it, right? I work with lots of clients who are stuck in their head because they're trying to say, well, this person said this, and this person said this, and this coach, and this friend, and this therapist, and they're outsourcing their guidance to other people. And we really want to insource our own guidance. You are a high quality information processing machine when you allow yourself to be that. Even if you've made decisions that you regret, even if sometimes you feel like you get attracted to the wrong men, there is a high quality stream of intuition in all of us. And it's much better for you to get closer to that intuition and guidance than sort of just outsource it to someone else, right? So I'm here to be a helper for you to learn from my experience of thousands of hours of working with clients, my experience of my own trails and travesties in the relational realm. But nothing is going to be as powerful as you tuning this in. But sometimes people aren't even aware of season. It's like they don't even think that way. So if you're meeting a guy in winter, right? It's a kind of, and I mean this in an internal season, not just out there internally. Winter is really about hibernation. It's kind of about regrouping, going quiet, going cold, settling in. That's not normally the energy that people start a relationship in, right? But internally, if someone is more in springtime or summertime, right, where there's new possibilities, new openings, they're not just fresh out of something, that's someone who may be in a season where it makes sense to them. If, for instance, a guy is about, I've coached people in this territory where the guy says, well, look, I really like you, but I'm about to go travel the world. And he doesn't want to shift his plans to travel the world to be with you. You probably need to hear him and align with that and realize, okay, so he's this time of his life, it's a season where it's more important to go traveling than invest in a relationship. And he's allowed that, and you're allowed to have your authentic experience around that. But what might not serve you is if you try to be in a position to persuade him, kind of think otherwise than what is being said to you. So quite often the season can be revealed through time, just through the actions of, well, what is a guy prioritizing and what makes sense to him. Another confusion in this territory is that there's going to be a subset of guys who the way that they work out what season they're in is through the heat of dating and relating with people, right? Sort of meaning, rather than it just being like they've sat on the sofa and decided, it's springtime, I'm ready to get into dating. They head off into dating, and in the course of meeting someone, they either work out, yes, I am available for something more serious, or I'm not, right? So sometimes the feedback loop is live and happening with you. Now, you may say, I prefer to have a guy who's self-aware, knows what season he's in, right? So I want a commitment-oriented guy who knows that he's in a season of his life that it makes sense for him to talk about commitment. Hey, that would be ideal, right? But that is going to be a smaller subset of men. And it might be that there's someone that is in your dating field who actually could be moving into a time of commitment. They just maybe haven't fully declared that to themselves or on the front end. Let me just move you into step 3 so you get the kind of whole idea of the system, and then there'll maybe be some more bits that I can fill in. So the third thing that you might want to be aware of is, what is this guy's orientation to you specifically, right? So this is the part where it can get a little bit You can have some harder feelings because this is the more personal bit. Up until now, the things I've been talking about are impersonal to you, right? If he's a commitment type or not, that's not about you. That's about him. If he's in a season of his life where it makes sense for him to think about commitment, that's about him, not about you. But the third thing is, what is his orientation and interest to you? Is he likely to want to explore commitment with you? And that's where you have to develop your sobriety and your objectivity, which are important qualities to cultivate in your life. These are awesome things to have in your life for all domains of your life. For you to notice, what's his level of interest towards me? What's his level of progression towards me? Right? Is he continuing to invest and increasingly invest in the connection with me? And you can bring this into the conversational realm with him. I put this out there because I have seen it many times, both with clients and with friends and family, where they get confused by a guy because he's willing to be sort of like a low or medium commitment boyfriend, but not progress it towards that. He's not willing to move in or propose or really start to build a life together. And at some point they rightfully say, well, hey, you've had plenty of time. And so if you're not going to really double down on this, like, I need to go. But that's a very difficult place. And I see that it's hard for clients and people I've known in my personal life to get to that position. And then they're shocked when 6 months later, he goes and steps into a much deeper form of committed relationship with someone else. And that's painful, right? You've invested all this time in this guy and he hasn't wanted the ultimate thing with you. And then you turn around and it's like, well, hang on a minute. He said he wasn't ready for commitment, but now he seems to be stepping into commitment with this other person. So that's the third part of this, right? Is that there is a unique energy that exists between you and another person. And we try not to make the dynamic, you or the other person, wrong. We try to observe as we put our scientist glasses on as best we can and say, hey, what is the dynamic here? Is there a dynamic of increasing commitment happening between these people? And your intention and desire is obviously part of that, as is his. But there's almost like a third property to this, which isn't really just about your and his intention and desire. It's like, is it true that there is some kind of commitment that can happen between you? Is that really what's wanting to happen? Is the universe supporting, is life, God, however you think of that, supporting you to move in the direction of commitment? And sometimes you just have to observe that rather than think it or have a vision that it's there. And then you might feel like the rug gets pulled from beneath you if actually that's not the direction that it's moving in, right? So this is difficult because you're going to have feelings, you're going to have desires, you're going to want it to go a certain way. And you have to learn how to, have your desire. Your authentic desire is definitely important. But what you desire and what is true about the relationship are two different things, right? So you have to have that space to be able to see, is he a commitment-oriented guy in a commitment-oriented season? And is he in a commitment towards me? And you need all those things really to be true for you to end up in a committed style of relationship with a man, right? And by the way, this will be true of you, whether whoever you are and whoever you date, whoever you love. This is going to be broadly true for you. But I've seen this most in working with women who want a more committed style of relationship with a man. And sometimes they get confused when the guy thinks of himself as partner material, thinks he's in a partner material season of his life, but actually they're missing this piece of, but what's going on between him and you? And how do we get sober, real, have real conversation about that and see what's true? So if you're here live, let me know in the chat that you're here. Tell me where you're calling in from. Let me know if you have a question, because I will be doing a quick Q&A for any questions that are incoming. Also, let me know, does this make sense? Is it landing? Can you follow the model? Have you had this kind of experience? Is one of these making more sense to you? Is one of them new to you? Let me know. It's always great to have your feedback and know if you are picking up what I am putting down. So I'm going to bonus one more thing in here, right? Which is a different way of approaching this space. And then we can see if there's anything more to fill in about these 3 ways to attract a guy that wants commitment. So the other thing I'm just going to throw in is, at this stage, I've probably reviewed certainly the tens of thousands of dating profiles. And one of the things that can strike you very quickly about a dating profile is how seriously is this person taking this dating profile? And so if you want to attract a commitment-oriented man, wouldn't it be great if your profile really embodied that you're taking this dating process seriously, right? So what might this mean? It means that your profile is going to be complete. It means that you probably have used the full space for words that are available to you. It means that you talk to your target client, right? Meaning in this instance, you're talking to that man that is commitment-oriented rather than talking to guys that have hurt you or guys that are low investment or low in commitment. So it's quite common when you review profiles to see women are talking about, hey, what's it with all the what's it with all the fish photos, right? Or why are you guys all taking pictures with your cars? Now, I apologize if there's a lot of that that's going on in the space, right? I don't look at those profiles. I hear about them. So I get the critique, right? So this is not to say that you're wrong in your critique. It probably would be better if these guys had fewer photos of fish and cars and photos that perhaps showed more unique and other aspects of their life. So I agree with you. The question is, why is that going on your profile? That can be, something that you complain about to your girlfriends over a glass of wine, but your profile is really the tip of the spear of getting you into the dating game. So it needs to talk clearly and call out the kind of guy who is going through profile seriously. So another thing that you'll see commonly on people's profiles is, well, how many of you read this anyway, right? It might be true that 90+% of guys don't read profiles, right? They're just thinking, are you hot or not? That might be true. But you're looking for something specific, right? So you need to talk to the people that are your target demographic. And even if that is 10 in 100, 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, it doesn't really matter what those specific odds are. That's where you need to pitch. And so you're pitching for the guy who is going to take the time to read your profile, who might pause on your pictures and think, oh, that's interesting. I wonder where that is. Maybe that's Hawaii. Oh, I've been to Hawaii. Right? Or, oh, here's someone who's got some pictures with some girlfriends. Seems like a sociable person, right? That they're actually processing the information in front of them. Because when guys are more serious, they're doing that process more seriously. Do you get what I'm saying? So for many of you watching right now, you could do a profile makeover, and it would increase the likelihood of you appearing that you want commitment or something more serious to the kind of guys who already know I am a commitment-oriented guy and I am possibly in a commitment-oriented season of my life, and that you're calling them out. Otherwise, you're not letting these profiles work for you, because these profiles have been shown to multiple people, sometimes tens or hundreds of people every day. That's free work, right? You only have to put the profile up once. So chisel it to make sure it's the best that you can do. And if that means you spend several more hours on it than you thought you were going to, I think that's probably a good investment of time, rather than you creating social commentaries about what men generally do on their profiles. Because yeah, dating apps are flooded with all sorts of stuff, and most of it's noise. But if you can put out a clear signal through the noise, you're calling in and being appealing to the sorts of people that you might want to get into a conversation or a date with. So let me know if that's making sense. Anna, hi, listening from Boston. Love your teachings. Yes, all makes sense. Got it. I'm glad that's making sense. If you're also listening live, let us know that you're here, where you're tuning in from, and whether this is making sense to you. And if you have a question, please put it out in the comments. I will get to questions here momentarily. And just to say, if you didn't hear me say this earlier, I am in the early works of thinking about my next offering to you guys to work with me. It's likely to be something new that I haven't done before. And if you want to hear about that, the way that you'll hear about that is by getting on my mailing list. And the quickest way to do that is just to download my free guide here that I've put in the chat. This is your guy checklist. It's just 9 simple steps you can run a guy through. So it's very complementary to what we're talking about today. It takes about 5 minutes to run a guy through these. It's just a way of scaffolding your thinking to think, what have I actually got in front of me? It's very hard to see soberly what you have in front of you, right? Even as much as I have cultivated, I think, some genuine levels of sobriety in my life, I can still be surprised at how lacking in sobriety I can be when I'm activated romantically, sexually, otherwise, right? So this is just saying this is a practice to be able to see what is happening in front of you. And the more you can, in a sense, take some objective steps to look at that, or some kind of more objective standard, it's going to help you keep that intuition that we're talking about more dialed in you. So let me know if you've got a question. Nika, hi, tuning in from Slovenia. It's landing for sure. Happy to hear that. That's great. Thanks for tuning in. So there's one thing I just wanted to say a bit more about the guy who's commitment oriented, but we're not exactly clear what season of his life he's in. And so I wanted to just open this up and give you kind of 3 simple possibilities here. So there's a possibility, I call it clear, right? That he's clear that he wants a commitment. That would probably mean that if you were a fly on the wall of the conversations that he's having with his guy mates, he's saying, hey, I'm looking for a girlfriend. I'm looking for a partner. I am looking for something serious, right? Sometimes the challenge for you is you don't get access to what he's saying to his guy friends. So you don't really know how he's thinking about you or what he's orienting to in his relationship prospects. So this is where getting curious about him is a good thing. Getting curious about what has him think that he's in a commitment oriented stage of his development or season of his life. So one option is that he's kind of clear. The third option is that he doesn't want commitment, right? And he either makes that clear by how he behaves towards you, or by the fact that he's just clear, like he's looking for fun, he's looking for casual, he's looking for light, he's looking for hookup. He has a right to all those things, but that's not going to be a good fit for you if you're oriented towards commitment. So when the guy is like clear off the bat and maybe even says it in his profile, like, yeah, I'm looking for long-term partnership, I wouldn't just take it from what he's saying in his profile, but that is one indicator, right? We want to notice as many indicators and they're all pointing in the same direction. Or if the guy says he's not into commitment, the question is, can you hear that soberly and let your desire be to one side while you get clear, hey, actually, this guy's not oriented to commitment, so I might need to downshift this if I'm looking for commitment. The one that's a little bit more gray is the guy, I call it open, right? The guy who's open to commitment. And what that might mean is if he meets someone in this third column called, personally to you, what is the connection? If he meets someone that he's like, oh, wow, like I'm interested in this. I'm curious. I want to pursue this, or I want to know more, that he's open to it. It doesn't mean that he's necessarily pre-decided right now I need to be in partnership, but he's open to it if he meets the right person. Because a lot of people, in an authentic way, that is their orientation, right? They want to date. They maybe even want to have fun along the way if there's not something serious in front of them. Because let me just say this, all guys, I would say, that, love on, are attracted to, date or relate with women, are likely at any stage or season, any stage of their development or season of their life, they're likely to want connection and intimacy with women, because that's just something that they're drawn to. Now, that desire is a different thing for, do I want and am I oriented towards commitment, right? And that's often your discernment, is to notice, okay, the guy's, he's interested in me, but is he interested in something more committed? But pretty much at all stages, guys are interested in connection and intimacy, unless they've maybe just come out of something that's devastating for them, or they're so maxed that they don't even have time. But even then, I'd say most guys, even when they're super maxed, if they have the ability to have a meaningful lovership or someone that they can just hit up when they've got time and connect with, they're probably going to want that. But that guy doesn't tick these three boxes, right? He might be commitment type, but he's not in a commitment season. If he's in a commitment season and he's not clear he wants a commitment, but he's open to it, then you have to get even more curious about this third column, which is, what is his particular interest in you? And to try and be as sober and discerning about that as possible. Because, yeah, sometimes a guy's open and boom, he meets someone. I've seen this with friends who've ended up with, long-term relationships where, they were going traveling, but they actually met someone and they're like, wow, it's on. I'm really interested. And they cut short their travels, or they started to readjust their life so they could build a life with someone, or at least pursue that possibility. So it's definitely available, but you need to make sure that you're not in over your head with your fantasy or your imagination about what's happening. Imagination is one of our most powerful things as human beings. When it comes to our inner work, it can also be the place that we trip up most, because we fill in the dots and we imagine, and what we imagine that what we want could actually be in front of us. And in this third column, we need to say things like, hey, you've been getting to know me. How do you think of me? Or, what's your interest in getting to know me at a deeper level? And why are you interested in that? If I were a fly on the wall with your guy friends, what might you be saying to them, right? Not every guy he's always confessing everything to his guy friends, but it's just a sort of way of saying, hey, if you knew that I could hear anything that is true for you about our connection, that I'm available for that, what's the answer? That's really what you want to know. And to be able to do that, you are often in your own inner work of getting over, can I hear something that's difficult without being defensive? Can I hear something that someone says without filling in the dots and making it mean something else? Can I distinguish my desire from his desire? Can I distinguish my feeling emotionally connected to him from his feeling emotionally connected to me? Because one pattern I see is that you might be emotionally connected to a guy when you're having emotional experience because you put out emotional energy and he's picking that up. But that's a different thing than him feeling safe and trusted with you, that he wants to share with you his emotional experience. Now, some women don't care as much about that. Honestly, that's what the data shows. They're most interested in, can a guy connect with me in my emotions, than whether he is being emotionally revealed and do I connect with him. But there's going to be a subset of you that want that to be a strong two-way street. And in order to do that, you have to almost put a bit of yourself down so that you're more available to see what is coming from him over there. Nika says, that's true. I was sure I could have checked all the boxes for my ex, but looking back, I was lacking sobriety. I saw he was unclear about many things. and it felt he was just mirroring what I want. Yeah, some of you, are probably powerful emotional conductors and manifestors, right? And those are gifts, absolutely. And the sometimes liability that comes with that is sort of what's being pointed to here. How much is the guy kind of responding to you and where you're at versus that might be true for him when you're not in the same emotional, energetic field, right? So you don't want it just to be true when you get together. You want it to be ongoingly true for him that he's, interested or feeling commitment oriented towards you. And sometimes you have to get sort of out of your own process a little bit to see what is true and going on over there. Conversations are generally your friend with this, right? And you also want to have conversations through time. Ideally, you want to be that person that people can most easily say what is true to, right? It's not always easy for a guy to A, know what's true for him, and B, communicate that proactively. But if you can create as many spaces where it's like, hey, without this being a heavy thing, we need to talk, just, hey, I'm checking in. I'm just curious. This is my experience. What's your experience? Right. And for all of us, not just intimate relationship, in any relationships, the more that you can have your experience and let people have their experience and distinguish the two, the more truth, clarity, sobriety you can metabolize in your life. Right. So a lot of the things that we're talking about here today, if you're listening and you're like, well, actually, I don't even want commitment. I'm just interested in dating, or I'm just stepping back in, or I don't even know what I want, or I'll know it when I see it. All of those things are totally valid. The things that we're talking about will be useful in all your relationships. I've seen an increasing number of people who are estranged from people in their families or close friends, often over cultural and political differences. And I certainly want to help you and help myself and help us take a stand for being able to have better skills to deal with that we don't need people to agree with us or share our values in order to have some kind of relationship with them. Now, that's not going to be a great choice of person for you to have as a long-term partner, because you're going to want to be aligned on some core values, obviously. But it's also not great to be more estranged from people than you need to be. Right? Most people would prefer to stay connected with people, but including families of origin, if that is available to them. So, power to you if you've had to take a stand with someone, and that's what you need in order to heal or claim yourself or claim your boundaries. But I would encourage you to see that where possible, not as the permanent condition of things, that is a shorter term arrangement that allows you to do what you need to do, get your support, get your work. But then when you can, you're going to step back into contact because, as Rumi said, most of us really deep down, what do we want to do? We want to remove our blocks to love and connection. And we all have them. I have them, you have them, and we want to be removing them generally to be at our best so that when we get towards the end of our lives, presumably we can say that we gave the full measure of our love. So if you're interested in that, this is a good place to be. Let me know if you've got any other questions, comments, or lived experience that you would like to share. Click that link so that you're on my mailing list, because I want to make sure that you hear if we do move into creating this next offering here. I'd love for you to be part of that if it's a good fit for you. And just make sure you're getting my emails. If you've had the experience, you haven't been getting my emails, it might be that for some reason you're no longer on my list. Sometimes we clean lists up, etc. So you can always just click that link and get back on and involved. So this is 3 ways to attract a commitment-oriented guy. I've taken you through these kind of 3 steps. A guy who is a commitment type, that generally he orients towards commitment. That's what he's looking for. He is in a commitment season of his life. And by the way, very few of us are taught about seasons, right? We all know, spring, summer, fall, winter, or autumn, if you're British. But internal season, I've seen very little teaching about this. And I think it's a super powerful concept. What is the actual season of your life? Are you in a beginning? Are you in a stabilizing? Are you in an ending? How clearly do you know what season you're in? How clearly can you be curious about what season another person is in? Because this season thing really matters, right? You've probably heard this expression. You can meet the right person at the wrong time, but the wrong time is part of this whole equation, right? So you can say, yeah, this would be a great person to have met in the past or to be open to in the future. And you can say, hey, if in another season it makes sense for us to reconnect, I can stay open to that. But if it's not the right season now, then typically it will benefit you either just to keep it as a friendship, companionship orientation, but not expecting it's going to have the partner upgrade, because we need to acknowledge that's rare. Or it might be to say, hey, you're a great person, and if partnership were available between us, I would be so interested. But because it isn't, gosh, we might have to let this go, or we might have to kick it back down to something that's more casual. You don't have to cut people out if that's not the kind of person you are. But sometimes just doing the thing that most prioritizes the thing that you want is important. So if you're most prioritizing, I want to get into partnership, then people who end up being, friends, or what we sometimes call cameos, kind of like part-time appearances in the play of your life, sometimes you have to take, less energy and investment in that and more energy and investment towards the thing that you want. The other thing that occurred to me coming into this, I don't know, I've only worked for myself, so I've always been at least peripherally, if not centrally, involved in some kinds of marketing and sales. And if you're a salesperson who's prioritizing their time, what do you want as a salesperson? What you really want are what we call highly qualified leads, right? And what does that mean? It means people who are a good fit for your offering, right? So if your offering is come be my partner, wouldn't it be great if you had a stream of highly qualified leads, right? Meaning men who are commitment types, who are in a commitment season, and who are interested potentially in a personal way towards the possibility of at least getting to know you, if not at some time being in a commitment with you. Now, the question is, how do you get that high quality stream of leads? And one of the ways that you do that is by being willing to spend much less time on low quality leads, right? You don't always get to control exactly how many leads are incoming, right? You may have even had the experience that you can take the same dating app and turn it on in different cities, and you might get a very different level of interest because different dating markets have different dynamics. A lot of that stuff is beyond your control. But what is in your control is when the lead comes in, how quickly can you notice, oh yeah, this is someone who's qualified, right? They're commitment oriented. So I'm willing to get to know them. We may not be a good fit. There may be, all sorts of things that aren't right between you, but they're in the ballpark versus, oh, this person isn't. And is it okay for me to say, hey, I don't think we're aligned here because I know I'm looking for something more serious. And, they can always push back and say, well, look, I'm open to it. And actually, I see it or I don't see it. I mean, all sorts of authentic conversation can happen there. But it's about you kind of setting your frame that is okay on what for you to go for what you want. Now, the pushback that I will generally hear to this is, gosh, I've had such little interest from any man. I don't need him to want to be my partner. I would just love for a guy to take me on a freaking date. That's where it is at the moment, right? I'm looking around and it's barren. It's the desert. So here's you talking about highly qualified leads. And that seems a world away from my experience. My experience is guys don't even take women on dates anymore, right? So, if that's your experience, sorry, that can be hard, right? It could be a point of reflection of, is there any, is your profile a call out to more highly qualified leads or more highly qualified men in this instance? Are you in a dating market where there are plenty of men who are looking for something serious? And if not, are you prioritizing maybe spending time in another dating market or putting yourself on a different platform or pursuing some kind of different strategy? So there are things that you have agency over. But generally what I see, the simplest way, just, me, yes, I went to Cambridge, blah, blah, but I'm also a pretty simple guy. Let's keep it simple. The quickest way to have more high quality leads is to spend less time on low quality leads, right? So that you are actually more comfortable saying, oh, I'm just going to let that conversation go, or I am going to unmatch, or I'll send a quick message saying, this doesn't feel aligned. I wish you well, right? What we're not looking to do is to build a narrative that, all men aren't available, all men are bad, they're terrible, their profiles are fish photos, yada, yada. We don't want to build global beliefs about men that don't help you, right? Because men is a massive category. It is 2 to 3 billion people in the world. It's a huge category. So there's going to be as much, if not more, variance amongst men as there are amongst women. And these are huge categories of variance. What we want is for you to be resonating and trusting the resonance with people who want a similar thing than you. And one way to do that is when you notice they're not, that you cut it off, or you just say, hey, tell me I'm wrong, but here's what I'm noticing, here's what I'm thinking. And by the way, here's where this could even be confusing. You could take the same guy who's a commitment type, who's in a season of commitment, but there's a thing in this third column called personal to you and the dynamic. Over here with someone else, he might be engaging in high commitment behaviors because he's really interested. But with you, there's something about the connection. It's not nothing. He's not lying about it, but it's just, it's not really so compelling for whatever reason, right? So that's why this thing of what's the actual orientation to me is an important thing. If you can get over yourself, that's not a rejection of you. Because again, let's be sober. Nearly all men you meet aren't going to be interested in investing in you, right? That's just how it is. That's just numbers. I don't care if you're, a supermodel or if you're this or that or whatever. That's just going to be how it is, really. So the quicker that you can get in sobriety, the vast majority of men I meet are what we call zero. They're not going to be something to me. One being a guy that's interested to pursue something. If it's a zero, that's okay. You want to get more comfortable with zeros. Of seeing a zero as a zero. There's no point having pain about a zero being a zero, right? We call this loving reality. And for most of us, this is inner work. It's a real process. But it's good for you to be able to notice that, say it, move on, make a quick, authentic communication with someone well, leave minimal energy on the table. That's a good thing for you to learn to do, because that will serve you in many areas of your life, right? So we don't want to make the guy wrong for that. Most guys that show up in your field are going to be zeros. The fewer zeros, the more attention you have for ones. Now, if you say, well, Jack, if I take out the zeros, I don't know, the last time I saw a one was, back in the 80s, then okay, we need to look at what is going on in you. How much are you putting yourself out there? How much is your profile a calling card? How much are you willing to put yourself into places that are the edge of your comfort zone, to maybe meet more men, to go to different types of events, to get activated in person, go out on the evening where you think, I don't really want to go out, to actually push yourself. There's probably some things going on there, right? We need to have you generate some leads. But if you're generating some leads and none of them's high quality, okay, you might be in a period where there aren't high quality men, let's say, coming into your field. So let's be sober about that. It still serves you to not invest time in things and think they're investable when they're not investable, right? So it might be that, for this season, it is winter for you. You're not going to have a ton of interest. So do some other things, focus on your self-care, do that inner work, heal your mother wound, do the thing that you haven't done, right? Turn to yourself so that you're then going to be ready, because your time will come, right? That is the dynamic nature of life. There are seasons. I remember talking to someone back in the day who was talking about having a purple run in their life. I'd never heard of this concept. And they're like, yeah, there was this time it was in Chicago. I was at grad school in my early mid 30s. And I just never had so many men interested in me. It was crazy. And they've almost never had it, before or since, right? So just some seasons it is more on, however you want to think of the metaphysics of that, than in other seasons. When that is the season, you want to be available for it. Just like if you're a farmer, sometimes there's a bumper crop season. You want to be available for that, because that might make up for 2 years of drought. So we want to be ready. We want to stay cultivated in ourselves so that we're ready. You can't force the dynamics, but you certainly don't get better dynamics by seeing something for not what it is, by imagining that this person's more available than they are, by hallucinating a commitment because they're doing things that if you were doing them would feel like commitment, but for them, you haven't actually checked it out. So again, we come back to this brass tacks: minimum assumption, maximum curiosity. How do you notice what is actually in front of you and not subjectify, right? Not put all you on the other person, but actually allow them to be revealed to you. We call that being impressionable in coaching speak. How can you let someone impress upon you so that you actually notice and are attuned to what is in front of you? And generally in this, your friends are going to be slowing it down, staying patient, and dropping your story, right? Try not to storify your dating too much. Just actually notice, what is this actually like? What is actually here? Yep, I've got excitement, I've got fantasy, all that's running. That might happen, but I can sort of just put that down for a little bit and just tune in and notice what might be happening. So, Clayton Olson, what's up, Jackie boy? That's actually how he would say it. This is a literal quote. Some of you know Clayton, fellow coach. We've also done some good teaching together. Clayton, welcome. Thanks for being here. And to any of you that are just joining us, whether it's live or after the event, let me know if you've got a question, comment, or something you want me to answer. I'll try to get to all of them. We are going to be starting to move towards a close here. So if you're live, this is your opportunity. And also just to let you know, if you haven't, I'll put it in here. This is obviously important to do. Get yourself on the mailing list, because I want to write to you in it. I don't know where that accent's come from. That is a unspecified UK accent. If any of you know which accent that is, please tell me. I'm a little terrible at them. Me says, hello, Jack. I am loving listening to you, and thank you for sharing your awareness. You're so awake. Gosh, on my best days, maybe. Yeah, but at my most awake, right, just to be real about this, it's also because I would realize how fallible I am to being asleep and to lacking sobriety, right? So it's not that I get up and I'm so all seeing all the time. It's that oh gosh, there's that thing again. Look at me. Wow, I'm in the shower and I'm somewhere completely different. And God, look at that. Met that person, got excited. Total fantasy. Let me put that down, right? So this is real practice for most of us. It's not that you're never going to lose presence. You're going to lose presence all the time, all over the shop, even in ways that you haven't yet distinguished. The question is, when you have that drift, how quickly can you start to shift back into something that is more here and real and tangible? And I appreciate the reflection, and certainly that is something that I'm looking to cultivate. I will say this: I'm lucky to have been in a lot of coaching conversations with people over a decade now, and I've often seen that these most difficult places in relationship, right, and this would include me and past hurts and stuff that hasn't worked out for me. The difficult moments can often be these moments of real, I use the word wakefulness, right? So if you, for instance, right now, if you're a woman listening to this and you are stuck on someone who is not fully available to you, you can be in the narrative of life isn't fair, this isn't fair, will I ever find love again? Will I be permanently lonely? What do I do? Right? And none of this is about trivializing fears, because fears can be real, right? And there's also a way that you can empower yourself, like, what if this is perfect in some way, right? What if life cooked this up, or I cooked this up, or we co-created this, however you think of it, in some way, so that this is for me rather than against me. And the for me might be in this realm of wakefulness. It might be that this is a moment of possible transformation or possible wakefulness. But I've got to be open to seeing it that way. And quite often, wakefulness isn't free and it isn't cheap, right? Meaning it can be costly and painful and expensive to realize what is actually true for you, or to be more awake than you were in the past. So sometimes in the most difficult moments of life is saying, hey, you actually want to grow? Yeah, it's going to be a little painful for a little bit here, but you're going to get to more ease, trust, resonance, openness, if you're willing to step into the fire of transformation, right? That's why I've been interested for so long in being a transformational coach, because there are these much deeper possibilities within us that come often from these difficult circumstances. So you can feel like you're a victim to your circumstance, right? Yeah, at one level, who wants to fall in love with an unavailable man, right? That is a recipe for pain. And very few of the people that I work with in this territory, went looking for this, right? It's like it blindsided them. It caught them by surprise. So again, no judgment here, right? We're all fallible. I'm so fallible. But the question is, can you take that thing and imagine, even if it seems a crazy proposition in this moment, could this be for me in some way, right? Could it be, gosh, here I am with another freaking narcissist. Do I go down the route of a commentary about narcissists, right? And sometimes, honestly, it surprises me how much time people are willing to study narcissism, right? I like to say, do you want a PhD in narcissism, or do you want a PhD in something that you actually want in your life, right? Like love, freedom, truth. And if it's that, then you might need to redirect some of your attention and say, oh, so what is the narcissist here to teach me? And that's not to say that I'm not exonerating narcissist behavior. Obviously, some people are sociopathic, psychopathic. We need to deal with that appropriately, right? So I'm not trivializing that. I'm just saying, if life is an ongoing, always, already call to your own wakefulness, then you can use any circumstance and imagine, is there something in this that can wake me up, right? Is there a way that I relax all my boundaries around these narcissists? And actually, that's what's hurting me even more than them. It's that I do a thing. Like I'm prone to getting tension in my belly, right? That's the place that I hold stress. And when that's going on for a while, at my best, I have to say, what am I creating here? Or what inauthenticity in me? Because I've got this very calibrated, sensitive body, which is a gift. It's a gift as a coach and as a teacher and as a relator. It's a gift in so many ways. But then it will show up as a liability because it tracks. It's like, hey, there's something here that's not quite right for you, Jack. And you've got to get curious about it. And I don't want to, right? I want the pill. I want to be out of pain. I want to move on with my day. I want to focus on shooting a video, calling my dad, whatever the thing I'm doing is. But my body's like, yeah, hang on a minute, buddy. There's something here that we need you to pay attention to. And sometimes I may pay attention and I might not even know, right? It's not that all awareness is just in the moment, always revealed. It's a through time practice for most of us. So there you go. That's what you wanted, wasn't it? A little bit of a ranty. Woo! There we go. Anna says, I'm someone who has done a lot of personal growth work and want the same in my guy. I'm not finding that type of person. I'm beginning to think they didn't exist. Yeah. So, I mean, I want to say I personally do know plenty of men who are engaged in personal growth work, right? So I'm clear from lived experience that those men do exist. Now, that might also be not every man, right? So it might be true that there are plenty of men that are not engaged in that. I like that you want that. Again, if we just put it through that sort of sales angle, that's a high form of qualification. So there's fewer people that are going to get through that filter, but that's a great filter to have. And I think that men who do work don't want to partner women that don't, right? So they're going to want the same thing from their side. The question is, where do those guys exist? Where do those guys live? What do those guys put their attention on, right? Are those guys, I don't know, are they part of social justice movements? Are they meditating? Are they in some kind of spiritual school? Are they in therapy? Are they in the dog park? What section of the bookshop are they in? Where do those guys congregate online? Who do you know who knows men that do work? It might be a different set of questions that you're asking. It might even be, if I'm just honest with you, that there is writ large a societal level imbalance. It might be true that there at this stage in certain vectors, there are more women doing work than men. That might be true of certain kinds, because there's also certain kinds of work. I think like therapy, obviously there's men and women who are therapists and who find value in that, but it might be that there are more women that find value in that more readily. That might be true. I'm not saying it's true. It might be true. I've heard men say this, but like, that's not really my thing. So what are those men doing? Are those men going into the desert to do men's work, or are they doing breath work? Are they doing yoga? Are they traveling? Do they have some kind of conscious business or thing that they're doing in the world? You might want to become a little bit of a student of that, but I do think they exist, and it only takes one. So it could both be true and a both and, that there are writ large more women engaged in certain kinds of inner work than men. That might be true. And at the level of you and your path, it's like it takes one, right? It takes one guy that you click with and that wants to do this with you. So I wouldn't be disheartened by that. I would see that as a useful qualification. But I would also keep sort of maximum openness as to the way that a guy does work manifests, right? So he might not be in therapy, although he may be, or have done some, but he might be doing some other thing, right? He might be doing vision quests in the desert, or he might be, teaching kids about environmental stuff, or, fill in the blanks. Hang in there. I think it's available. It's hard to let go of the small inner child hope that maybe this person is good, not the same as the previous bad people. Yeah. Well, I like that you want to meet someone that's good, right? So one way that we deal with this is by being in let's see, right? Let's see. So we have minimum assumption. Yes, there's a part of you that would like for this person to be good. So you can notice that you have that desire, but we don't know, right? So as best as we can, we're going to try to be scientists, right? A scientist at their best doesn't really mind which way the results go. They just want to know what are the results, because they want to be in actual data. So let it be revealed to you over time. That might actually be a good practice for you. It's kind of a neutral, right? If you're a people person, generally people, and I've probably been one of those in the past at least, you want to have a good experience of people, right? You want people to like you. You want to like them. You want to move towards them. You want to get into a relationship, even if not an intimate thing, just you want to, relate. But sometimes that it actually clouds your view of, well, what is it like? What's it like for me actually to be neutral? Because then I see people a little bit more clearly, right? If I'm used to moving towards people, what's it like for me just to stand back a little bit, stand in my own energy? Like, because from here, you're going to see something differently than here. Some of you, it might even be useful to learn, how do I kind of lean back, right? Because maybe I'm so used to being here that actually I need to lean back to even get some sense of kind of being neutral. You might see this in some spiritual teachers, that they adopt a kind of position of neutrality, because in a sense they want to sense what dynamics come up with you, because that's the best way to sort of know what's going on or what the potential issues are for you. So you can practice doing that yourself, right? You can practice, if you normally stand a meter away from people, what's it like to stand 1.5 or 2 meters away? It's going to give you a different experience. It's going to get you more rooted in yourself. We sometimes call this 80-20, right? Where you put 80% of the attention on yourself and only 20% of attention on other people. So the other way to think of this is, Joe Campbell famously said, all the heavens, all the gods, all the heavens, all the hells are within me, right? Now, that may or may not make sense to you, and it may or may not make sense to me. But one way that I interpret that is that, no one is really 100% good or 100% bad, right? We're all kind of some kind of mix. We have gifts, we have liabilities, we have better days, worse days, we have good intentions, we have unconscious intentions. So we're all a little bit of a mix. And actually, the more you can see the light and dark in yourself, the more you can see it and be with it in other people. And it's almost like you don't need to pause so much for, is this good or bad? I'm not saying that's going to work for you. It might be that you do need to pause that way, but it's a sort of different way of orienting. It makes bad people less that I have to be afraid of them, because I notice, yeah, okay, the way this person's behaving, I don't like, or the way that they show up for me, I don't like, and I'm a no to that. That's okay. But it's a little bit less likely to put us on a drama triangle, right? If you've come across the drama triangle, we have like a victim, a hero, and a perpetrator. Victim, hero, perpetrator. And this is like an unconscious dynamic that will often play out. So the danger, if you're kind of too afraid of bad guys, is that you're either a victim or a hero, unconsciously looking for someone to play this sort of perpetrator game with you. Now, obviously perpetrators exist, so I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying, as much as possible, you want to not play unconscious games with people. And so part of that is perhaps in you noticing, yeah, I'm kind of a mix, and I don't want to track the same dynamic with someone else. So what I'm going to get most curious about is, what is my authentic truth and what is authentically mine to communicate to someone, which could be a hard no. It could be a, yeah, I'm done, I'm out. That's fine if that's true and authentic for you. But it's a little less like that there are sort of good guys and bad guys. Like, that is a stage of reality, a stage of development. It's not unuseful, but there are other stages of development and other realities that might be more useful to you now, or at least alongside useful. So that's something I'd invite you just to get curious about. And Bon is saying hi from Washington State. Hello to you. Curious what the weather's out there. It's been a long time since I've been out that way. I miss the West Coast. Rhubarb, hi Jack, not interested in attracting a man, just wanted to say hello, you're the best. Well, thanks for tuning in. I'm happy you're here, happy you're getting value. Thanks for saying hello. Sadly, all I attract is committed men who just want to lead me on. What goes on in the minds of men who act like this? Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm most curious about what goes on in your mind. I'm less curious about what goes on in minds of men like that. Happy to riff on that, but that if I were coaching you, that's where I'd be going with you. So we'd say, okay, so you have the tendency to participate in a game called Please Lead Me On. And you might be saying, I don't want them to lead me on, but I'm just saying, from one level of reality at the moment, you are participating. And the way we like to say this to get clear is, if you're not being held by force or gunpoint, then you are participating, right? So you're not being kidnapped. That's a real thing. But most of the time you're participating, and there's some element of free will involved. To whatever extent that's involved, we say, why would it be okay for you to participate in a dynamic where someone leads you on? Now, I don't know what your truth is. Sometimes the reason we're okay with that is because we have a false hope that it's going to turn around. So we're like, okay, so he's kind of leading me on. I kind of see that, but like maybe at some point he'll take me more seriously. So we're holding on to a false hope. Sometimes we let people lead us on because we don't want to be in the truth, right? The truth is he's casual towards you. We had that 3-part thing in this category called personal to you. He's casual. He has a right to that. I don't even believe he chooses it most of the time. I don't think he sits there, or goes into the cave in India and meditates for 3 months about how serious should I be for this person. I think it's above his pay grade a little bit, right? Like, how do you know who you're going to be attracted to? And, just to say, there's a little bit of mystery to that, right? And partly that mystery invites us to not think so badly of people, right? Like, how could they do this to me? It gets us much more curious about, how could I do this to myself? Why would I be okay with this? Well, I'm only okay with it because I'm expecting a future payoff. Like, he has a different view of me. Or I fear loneliness and I'm worried about letting it go. Now, that can be real, right? I know what it's like to be lonely. That's not a fun experience for some of us. It can also be a deepening experience if we really kind of turn to it and get curious about it and learn how to metabolize it. But there's normally something, is what I'm saying, that sort of keeps it in place, that you are, quote, liable to being taken advantage of, right? That there's something in you that when you shift and say, hey, I don't want to be a person that gets taken advantage of. I'm not a victim. I'm a player. I'm a participator. I can create. And so when I get the sense that someone might be taking advantage of me, I say, no, I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't put myself in those situations. I take a stand, or I say, hey, I have a crazy idea. It feels like you're taking advantage of me. Am I right? You ask about it, you talk about it. Now, for those of you that have a pattern called I'm liable to be taken advantage of, you're going to find people to take advantage of you, right? So that's where this takes awareness. You're likely to seduce people into a game that you play called take advantage of me. Now, they have the same thing going on their side, right? So it takes two to tango, and what they're doing maybe objectively is worse. That's possible, right? It's maybe if there's a choice called take advantage or be taken advantage of, you choose be taken advantage of. But from the place that I'm looking, they're almost equally the same problem. They're just the inverse, right? One is saying, please take advantage of me. The other is saying, I will take advantage of you. Now, if you're in a reality that says, oh, there's bad people who perpetrate taking advantage of other people, of course, at one level, that's true. And at another level, to the extent that you can be whole, free, creative, and resourceful, which is generally the presupposition that as coaches we bring to our clients, that you are strong enough to find your true answers. From that place, we would get much more curious and say, well, why would you take it? Why would you play that game? Now, maybe as a kid, you had to play that game because maybe mom, dad, or your older sibling was taking advantage of you and you were a kid and you didn't have the agency and adulthood and ability to separate and go off into the world. But to the extent that all of us have at least some of our adult here, most of us can take a stand to say, no, this isn't what I want. And I say no, and I stand. Now, that is work for all of us. You know, I'm still strengthening my no. Probably most of you listening here are strengthening your no's in certain ways with certain people in certain domains. So again, none of this is judgment, and I'm not trying to trivialize what could be an incredibly painful experience. But I am sort of trying to hold that mirror up and say, I believe that I serve my clients most when we say, well, hang on a minute. Stop being over there with them. They might be douchebag 101. That might be true. But just come back over here with you. What's going on in you? What gets wrapped up in you that it's okay to you keep giving basically to someone that can't give back. You keep giving when you're having the experience of being taken advantage of. And here's what I've seen, which is sort of almost bizarre, that sometimes the more people are taken advantage of, the more they give, because the more in the pattern they are, the less in their wakefulness. They're spiraling into their own lack of wakefulness. So if you notice that's true, you might want to just take a stand and just stop, or just say to someone, hey, I'm just going to take this weekend to sort of be with myself and reflect on something. I'll get back to you on Monday. Take some time, have a think about it. So, you know, what goes on in minds of men like that is men like that aren't able to see the truth of a dynamic and communicate it, but we don't actually know what their truth is. But let's just say you had the same truth of like, hey, when I meet a woman who's liable to be taken advantage of, sometimes I take advantage. Or maybe I take advantage of all types of people. Maybe that is true, right? Maybe I need to wake up to that. But it's hard for you and I to fix that person, right? At some level, they have to come to the water and say, hey, I want some coaching, I want some therapy. I seem to take advantage of people. Or normally, if we honestly unpack that, people who take advantage of people were taken advantage of, and they learn how to not do that by proactively taking advantage of other people, right? So like often in the most tough take advantage of people, there is a little innocent one who got betrayed or got hoodwinked or got hurt and sort of made some kind of decision, whether they remember it or not, like, oh, I'm never going to be taken advantage of. And sometimes they then become the thing that they're sort of protecting their little one from. So they go out there and kind of stamp their authority on other people because they actually inside them is a little one that they may or may not contact that was hurt, betrayed, was let down, was taken advantage of, and didn't have the tools and safety to deal with that. So no one gets a free pass in this, right? There's often these weird sort of holographic mirrors of like, the person that's doing this thing has a little one inside them that had that same thing done to them. And so they're protecting and defending against that. But for your sakes, you don't need that PhD yet, right? The big PhD for you is, what am I doing? Right? That's the question here. And even if right now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, that is a radical perspective, Jack, because I'm pretty sure I'm doing nothing wrong and they're doing 100% of everything wrong. I just want to invite you into the possibility that there is something here for you. They could be doing something 100% wrong, right? And if we were coaching them, we would say, don't do that. Don't do that. What's this? What that? All sorts of things to unpack, right? But normally for you, there is something. There is something in, like, life is always walking you home in that sense. There is something to take a look at, even if it's your ability to trust your no, or even if it's your ability to say something that you currently think, well, I can't say that because that's unkind. But actually, no can be clear and loving and clarifying, right? So we try to go to work on ourselves, not from a victim place, not from letting other people off the hook, but just from, you want to meet different types of men, right? And the best way for you to meet that kind of man is to not be anywhere on the polarity or the polarized ends of advantage, take advantage of, right? We kind of want you in the middle, right? Where you're kind of neutral to that, where you notice if someone's one side or the other. Someone might have the experience that you're taking advantage of them. That's also a thing that I can see here. So it's kind of a weird dynamic how this plays out. So you can also just get curious if you have the pattern that you often feel taken advantage of. Go to some of your non-intimate relationships and just get curious. Like, what's it like relating to me? In the balance of giving and receiving, are we 50-50? Are we something else? What's your experience? Because you might have the experience that you're 90-10 with someone and they don't have that experience, because the way that you're giving is you buy them dinner, and the way that they give is they give you presents, and they think that's a fair trade, right? So it's best if we can actually get into shared reality with someone to say, hey, I tend to overgive, and the way that I overgive to you is, I take your call when I'm actually busy, right? Or I stock your favorite food when you haven't even asked me to, right? Or I write you love letters, or I go pick up your daughter from the airport. That's, for me, is giving and loving. And they might say, well, that's great, but it doesn't really show up in my bank account, because what I really process is, words of affirmation, for instance, to bring it to love languages, so it's complex in there. There's some different types of nuance. That's amazing advice. Thanks. You're welcome. I'm happy that's landing for you. Got an important announcement here. Hit the thumbs up thingy, party people. Basically saying, please, if you haven't liked this video, subscribe to the channel. We are at the top of the hour. I said that was going to be our time together here. So I will just say again, if you are not on my mailing list, get yourself on my mailing list. The quickest way is just to download the guide checklist. It will automatically put in your mailing list, because I will likely have a new offering that's coming up here shortly. Still in the works, but if you want to do more stuff with me, if you like my approach to this, then I would love to explore if that might be a good fit for you. So get on the mailing list. That's how you hear about it. As always, thanks for being here. Thanks for your likes. Thanks for your comments. I'm always impressed by the quality of your questions. If you're watching this after the event, thank you for staying to the end. And as always, I'm Jack. Thanks for being here.